Today on Shakedown, the show on Drive that really covers the real facts and opinions on motorsport, we're going to discuss Grand Am Daytona Prototypes versus the American Le Mans Series LMP2 race cars, because it's the lightning rod topic that's a big part of everyone's opinion about the upcoming 2014 United Sports Car Racing Series, the NASCAR consolidation of ALMS and Grand Am of North American sports car racing, that everyone wants to work, but seems to fear what it may be. Now, last week I did 2 interviews from the most recent ALMS race with Corvette Racing's Doug Fehan and Scot Elkins, the ALMS COO and USCR VP of Competition. Hey, go back and watch them if you have not, please. There's some good info in there. And the discussion from both guys was measured, with well-intended thoughts, suggestions, planned actions, and it was all about collaboration. But I hinted with the Scot Elkins interview that it looked more like scenes from the Scorsese movie The Departed, and that he was Mr. French, making rulings, keeping everyone in the gang, and not in each other's faces. Now, last week, Grand Am had a race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And after on the Twitter, one of the Daytona Prototype racers, one Jordan Taylor, typed out the following, quote, "Can anybody tell me where I can find an LMP2 race that had as much racing as the DP race yesterday at Indy?" Then he added, hashtag racing not parading. And then the ALMS versus Grand Am, quote, clag hit the radiator screen as the Twitter replies took sides. And truth be told, reading your comments on the Shakedown Fehan and Elkins interviews, I'm not feeling a bunch of unity and peacemaking from you guys either. And I know the undercurrent percolating in the racing paddocks, both of them, is the same. Racers being racers, we are notoriously insecure, suspicious, competitive, and flat out the toughest, most opinionated business athletes on the planet when we don't have the facts. And because the rules, schedule, the facts are not out, no shit, everyone's skeptical. And DP versus P2 is the easiest place to park the fear of all that unknown. So today on Shakedown via Skype, it's that DP tweetmeister, Jordan Taylor. He and I are going to have the discussion. You know, if he's not busy doing another music video, watch this.
Yeah. Feel it, baby.
Then stay here and watch this. Jordan Taylor is quite qualified to discuss Daytona Prototypes, Grand Am Racing, and the American Le Mans Series. Because no matter where you look, he is a Corvette racer in both series. With the ALMS Corvette team, Taylor's the 3rd pilot in the number 3 C6R with Jan Magnussen and Antonio Garcia when they go long-distance racing, like they did at Sebring and at Le Mans, where at Le Mans, they finished 4th overall in that 24 versus 7th for the sister car. And Jordan races a Corvette, the Corvette Daytona Prototype in Grand Am, like he did at Indy last weekend. So it's time to get some truth out of this whole ALMS, Grand Am, United Sports Car Racing discussion with Jordan Taylor. So Jordan, Twitter got you here, your DP versus P2 comments. Thank you for that. But before we get there, talking about that, 3 things. 1, trust me, I am agnostic to this whole discussion. This is not a Jordan Taylor anti-DP witch hunt. Hopefully what we'll do is share the facts and let the fans kind of decide what's really going on. Number 2, let's do a bit of your background so the viewers understand, who may not know you, understand your background and cred to have this conversation. And number 3, I want to do a bit of the racing news from this past weekend, F1, Spa, have a real racer comment on what's going on versus what I think. And if that's okay, you know what, I'll even remind you that we have a history. We don't really know each other, but your dad and I shared a sponsor way back in the 90s. And I grew up in Boston and live in New York, so your videos kind of have an affinity. You did the Boston Boy thing with Wahlberg on, what, Good Vibrations?
Yeah.
And then you picked up the Beastie Boys from New York for the last one, so, and we're going to talk about the videos before we're done. So.
All right.
Let's start with a short version of your experience and your career. First of all, you're 21 years old?
22 now, just turned 22.
Okay, so you're an old guy, I get that part. Yeah. Basically, you started karting, Skip Barber, championships, and then found your way into Grand Am back in 2008?
Yep, turned 16 and then jumped straight into the deep end in Grand Am, joining the GT class. So it was definitely a daunting experience, but I think if you're going to learn, you better learn from the best guys around you. So getting thrown in with guys like Robin Liddell, Andy Lally, you're going to learn from the good guys. So I was kind of forced to figure it out the hard way. It was my first stint ever at Daytona was midnight in the pouring rain, so I was terrified for my life, but glad I got through it. Kind of progressed. I was in GT for a while, and then I went to DPs with Bayer Racing in I think 2009. I was also hired to join Corvette Racing for their long distance events with Jan Magnus and Antonio Garcia. And then this year I've been with Corvette again for those events, but also on my dad's team in Grand Am, driving the Corvette Daytona Prototype.
Yeah, and you've touched on pretty much everything. You are a Corvette racer to the core, no matter what series. So you've got the experience at a number of levels, racing for your dad, and if my notes are right, no less than 7 podiums, 6 pole positions in maybe 40-something races so far, and wins for your dad as well, I understand, this year.
Yeah, it's been a good year so far. We were leading or tied for leading the points up until this past weekend. We've got 2 wins. I think I got 3 poles. So it's been a good year. We've had a fast car every weekend, but little things have kind of been nipping at our toes.
And you are multitasking. You're going for your business degree over at University of what? Andy Granatelli Vocational? No. Where?
Yeah, I'm at UCF, but I'll be there probably till I'm 40 years old. I can only take like a class or 2 a semester because I've had to drop classes every semester just to try to keep up with the racing. So it's been difficult, but I'll see if I can get through it.
Should I ask about the GPA or just ignore that question?
I had to ignore that.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll move on. But you can talk about racing and marketing because of the background. Yeah. And speaking of marketing, I got to ask you about these videos that you, your brother, and a few other your racing friends, Piggott and let's see, Mark Jensen, Ryan Eversley.
Yeah.
So what's this all about, pumping out these videos?
It started kind of weird in a weird way. My friend Mark and I, who you read off there, we were at a Mexican restaurant and the people thought we were a gay couple for some reason, but not that there's anything wrong with that. But so they came around and serenaded us with their mariachi band, and we thought it was kind of weird and laughed about it, and then we decided, what can we do to kind of make a funny video? And I don't know how it progressed into making a weird music video off of Good Vibrations and Marky Mark, but we got Spencer involved in the first one. We filmed it all in one afternoon and edited that night and sent it out right before Daytona, and it got way more hype than we were expecting, but we had a good time with it. I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself, then you got too big of an ego. So we were laughing. If you look at that video closely, at the end of every single clip, we were about to start laughing in the clip. So we were laughing the whole time while we were doing it.
Well, we're going to do our part. We're going to include the links to both of them, so hopefully the view time will go up. And since you are a 22-year-old kid, I can say that because there's a multiple of my age to yours, what do you think kids want to see in racing?
Well, I could speak from what I like to see out of racing. I like racing for what it is. I like seeing battling, strategy. What I don't like to see is just cars driving around in a line, and unfortunately you see that quite often these days, but that's why I kind of prided myself on being a GT driver, because I feel like they don't get the respect that they deserve, and because they are the slower class, and people, I guess the fans kind of think since it's a slower car, then they're less capable of drivers and teams. So I always was proud to be a GT driver and understood that the guys are doing the best they could, and they're not really based on aero or anything, so you can run nose to tail, and they're battling like crazy, bouncing off of each other. You'll see more passes there than in most other races. So that's what I like to see out of racing, nose to tail, a little bit of rubbing, and a lot of action.
Hold that thought about GT and DP, but let's do the racing news for now. And obviously from the Jordan Taylor spin, you'll see what I mean. So in F1, Lewis Hamilton got his first win for him with his new team. You got now 2 wins for your dad and your current new team. What was the pressure on you to get your first win for this new team?
Yeah, it was definitely pretty intense. I mean, my brother was there before me, and he obviously had a good run. He had like 7 poles in a row or something crazy, and they had 7 wins together. So I knew I kind of had to prove myself to them, and it was a winning team. So I knew if they weren't winning, it was maybe something to do with me.
The other thing of F1 is obviously tire management. I got to ask, in a DP on the Continental tires, are you dealing with tire management as well?
Yeah, we definitely deal with it. It's gotten a lot better over the years. Continental's been developing the tire, and the teams have been developing the cars as well. So I'd say about 2 or 3 years ago, it was pretty bad. You'd have to drive it literally about 80% of what the car was capable of exiting a corner just to take care of the rear tires. But even this past weekend in Indy, different tracks, I'd say different amounts, obviously, but like a track like Daytona or Watkins Glen, you can push pretty hard throughout the whole run and you won't have much drop off. But at Indy, the surface was pretty slippery and the car was sliding around a bit. So the more you're sliding around, the more heat you're building into it. It's going to wear quicker. So for the first, I'd say half of the run, you're not pushing 100% and kind of saving the car a little bit for the end of the race.
So real race car stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next part of F1 is the whole Red Bull driver thing. Do you have an opinion? Kimi at Red Bull, where do you think Kimi should go? Ricardo? Where's your head?
I think the natural thing would have Ricardo go there just because of the Red Bull theme. But I think for me personally, I'd love to see Kimi go there. I think he's fantastic, just his personality and the way he goes about his racing. But I think at the end of the day, Kimi's going to do what Kimi wants to do, and I don't think anybody else knows what that's going to be.
Jordan, is he a role model here? Am I feeling something?
I'd say in some of his lifestyle choices, I'd say yes.
And what do you think of the Alonso rumor? Do you think that's true or just negotiating?
Yeah, I think people are probably reading into it a lot more than probably what it is, but I think Alonso for me is probably top 3 guys in Formula One right now, just the way he goes about it, and he's obviously a very talented driver, a very technical driver, and for me that's kind of what I've been trying to learn over the years is the more technical side, and you can see that he understands the car very well, the team, obviously the politics, and I think at the end of the day, he'll make the right decision for himself.
Open wheel for you ever in your career?
I don't think so. I think right now, it was always a sports car route for me, obviously with my dad. So with where I am right now, Corvette racing was obviously the dream, and to already be here was pretty shocking. But I think to get to IndyCar, it would be a bit of a stretch right now. You have to be in the right situation to be at the front of the pack, and obviously Formula One is out of the question. I'm way over the curve for that age.
Spa 24 was the other deal. Mercedes won it. Audi bitched about balance and performance. We're not going to go down that path.
Yeah.
And Mante for Porsche proved that they finished second. They know how to run endurance races. You do Le Mans with Corvette Racing, as you mentioned, the factory team. Spa, have you done that?
No, but it's definitely one of the tracks I want to go to.
To you, what was the difference between the vibe, if you will, of racing in Europe versus racing here in the U.S.?
When I went to Le Mans for my first time in 2012, just for the test day, which is a standalone day 2 weeks before the event, more people knew my first name on that one day than I think I've had in a whole year in America at a racetrack. Just, it's incredible. They come with their own pictures they've printed off. Just, hey Jordan, can you come sign this for me? It's unbelievable how much they love sports car racing over there, and as a driver, that just makes you feel like you're on top of the world, and you just want to do everything for them.
Yeah. What other racing do you follow?
I'm a huge racing fan, so I try to follow everything. Obviously, I like road courses, so ALMS, Grand Am, IndyCar, Formula One, V8 Supercars, DTM, Porsche Super Cup, Carrera Cup, anything on a road course I'll follow.
And this is not a loaded question or a trick question, but with your background and your experience, do you look at racing as sports, entertainment, business?
I'd say all 3.
Yeah.
My dad is big on the business side, so I've kind of grown up knowing that. He's always dealing with sponsors, so I know at the end of the day, it is a business. Business-to-business deals are always being made.
Yep.
You've got big companies on cars, big car companies trying to connect with different companies, so it's a constant struggle for teams to find money, and you see that all over the world right now. Entertainment, definitely. It is an exciting sport, especially when you've got a lot of action going on the racetrack. And then for a sport itself, I think a lot of the drivers are full-on athletes. You see these days like Tony Kanaan doing Ironman. They're serious about it, and I think you do need to be at least somewhat fit to drive these cars.
Yeah, well, we'll not show right now the excerpt from Good Vibrations, but I'm keeping my shirt on, you bastard. Good job there.
Yeah, that took some convincing to get my shirt off.
All right, enough of that. It's time to talk about the DPP2 thing. And you tweeted what you did because you said you felt that you needed to defend all the anti-Daytona Prototype stuff that you read. What are you hearing and reading? What happened?
Well, I think ever since the announcement came out that DPs and LMP2s would be together, or DPs would be the lead class, just all these people kind of came out of nowhere going crazy over the Daytona Prototype and kind of hating on it, saying it's an old school car and they don't have good racing, the car isn't exciting, the car doesn't look good, and the drivers and teams aren't any good. So that's pretty much all I've been reading ever since it, or all that I see, I guess, or want to see. It got a little frustrating, so I figured someone needed to defend it a little bit, and I got a couple of people behind me, but I think it's going to take a bit of an army.
And I will weigh in and say I don't really understand, frankly, all the Pro P2 fan fodder when in the U.S. we can only find, frankly, 2 rich guys to field 4 cars. Your average DP field is what, 12, 15 cars?
We had 16 at Indy this week, but I'd say 14 is the average.
So talk to me a little bit about the whole comment about close racing versus not. What do you experience when you're in the, is it Velocity Worldwide sponsored car?
Yep, Velocity Worldwide, yeah.
Look at that.
First off, to everyone who's going to watch it, I'm not against LMP2. I think that's what a lot of people got out of that, was just that I hate LMP2 cars, and it wasn't that at all. It was just me defending Daytona Prototypes. But for the racing side of it, I mean, you watch any Grand Am race and you're going to see racing, whether it's the hardest track to pass on like Lime Rock, or a Daytona or an Indy where you're going to see passing every single lap. So for me, racing is a car battling on the track with another car and rubbing on him, passing him. And then when you watch an ALMS race, an LMP2 race, it's difficult for them to race. I'm not saying that they don't have racing, but I think the cars, the way they're designed and built, it's not built for, I guess, what I personally believe is racing, which is all passing. They need a system sort of like DRS in Formula One, because they're all aero based, and when you get close to a car, it's tough to run close, and that's what's causing them to have problems to race close and make passes, because they can't run that close to each other, and when they do hit each other, they're going to lose a dive plane or something, and since they're all based on aero, there goes their race, and it makes it difficult. But
well, let's use the aero as a stepping off point, because let's start with some of the facts and go through the This Is Real Race Car list of DP tech versus P2 tech. You mentioned aero. Let me start there for a piece, because it is one of the significant difference makers, maybe. DP is basically all flat bottom. You've got some dive planes, but it's pretty well regulated. Are you getting any downforce under the car from rake or anything?
We've got a splitter that kind of directs the air underneath, but we don't have a diffuser or anything, or any tunnels.
Right, which is what a P2 has. They've got the edges and the diffuser tunnel. The chassis for a DP is some type of bonded, I'm going to say tube frame, but you're going to fix me.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Okay, and a P2 car is full carbon, and there's one of the beginning differences. I'm going to use the aero as a part where, as you mentioned, although they've improved the look of the Gen 3 DP, I think people look at the shape of these cars and which one's more of a spaceship and which one's more of a simpler body. But beyond that, here we go to more similarities than maybe people know. From an engine standpoint, you're running a 5-liter Chevy V8, but it is overhead cam, correct?
Yep.
Okay. P2 running basically production-based as well. Twin turbo, V6s. You run 5-liter, they run 3.7-liter. But your horsepower is 500 at 7,000 RPM, and they are 500 at 5750 RPM. Gearboxes, DP is a 5-speed. I think you run an X-Track from the specs I read. They run a 6-speed.
Yeah, we run a 5-speed, but the BMW has a 6-speed.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah. And we can easily change it to a 6-speed if we had to.
So, and here comes the other piece that maybe everyone doesn't realize. A P2 is paddle shift, but DP is?
It's sequential, but if you have an amateur driver, you can have paddle shift.
So that's the delineation.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Both have the same type of electric power steering, both have the same type of twin wishbone pushrod type suspension. Adjustability, talk to me a little bit about a DP adjustability.
I'd say you can adjust anything on there that you can adjust on a LMP2 car. Just the differences are the aero side. I think mechanically you can do as much as you want to it as an LMP2 car. It might not look as exciting on the outside, but on the inside it's pretty much just another race car.
And the X factor coming up, even though Scott Elkins in our interview couldn't confirm Continental, there will be a single tire on both the DP and P2. So back to equalization, I guess.
Yeah, I think everyone will have the same tire in our class at least, and then the GT Pro or ALMS GT will have their open tire, I'm pretty sure.
Now brakes, 6-piston or multi-piston calipers, steel rotors or iron rotors for you guys, carbon right now in a P2. Yep. But let me use that as a stepping off point, because I'm understanding there are going to be some tech changes for DP next year. Is carbon one of those?
I've heard it. There's a lot of rumors obviously going around, but I've heard, we'll get more power probably. We'll have carbon brakes, some aero stuff, maybe diffuser, double element rear wing. So little things that'll help us get going quicker.
Got it. I see a difference in weight, about 2,300 pounds for a DP, about 1,900, 2,000 pounds for a P2. I'm sincerely asking this question. Can you feel that type of difference in weight?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you hit the brakes in the DP, it feels pretty heavy. I haven't driven an LMP2 car, but I would imagine it feels quite a bit lighter. 400 pounds is a lot.
Okay. I think I'll probably post these specs in the description, but from a dimension standpoint, the cars are really similar. 177 inches for you guys, 179 for a P2. Same type of width, 78 and change. The wheels, the spec size are the same. The tires are pretty close. What's the fuel capacity of a DP?
They were changing it around. I'm pretty sure it's around 19 gallons.
Guess what? 19 for a P2.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, you've got open cockpit versus the closed. I'm assuming somewhere in here there should be a safety discussion.
Yeah.
We talked about aero and we talked about the tube frame. What am I missing in terms of what it's like to drive a DP and consider it as a race car?
For me, my favorite racing in history is the GTP era, which is closed cockpit and just true race cars, ton of horsepower, ton of downforce, and guys hanging on for their life. So that's what I would want to see out of it. And I told Scott Elkins that, and he said I would want that too, but we're not going to get it right now. But I think you're gonna want fans that want the cars that looks like spaceships, because that's why they're going to the racetrack. They don't want to see their normal everyday cars that they see on the street. It's not as exciting for them, but then you're going to get the fans who want the racing, and I think that's what you're going to get out of the Daytona Prototype side.
So you've got the envious advantage of racing the Corvette Racing Gte, which guys like Fehan and Gary Pratt and the other drivers, Magnussen, all talk about it being a pretty stout race car, and the DP, which I'm not going to force you into a corner of which you prefer. Talk to me about the similarities and difference of driving each one.
Yeah, it's a much different driving style, a lot more than I would have thought. I've kind of figured out in my own head what I want to think about what it is the way the tire works and how you have to drive the tire, and the difference between the Continental and the Michelin. And in the Daytona Prototype, you can throw the car around. I mean, if you're a fan and you go watch a corner, you'll see we're sliding around like crazy, and it's fun to drive because you can wrestle it and you're going to get the lap time out of it that way, fighting it. So in qualifying, you're always having a good time because you're basically pushing 1,000% and just doing as much as you can get at the lap time out of it. And then when you go to the GT car and ALMS, the Corvette there, you have to be super precise with all of your inputs, hands, feet, even downshifts. If you're too quick on the downshifts, you can cause entry instability. If you're aggressive with your hands, you're going to lose the grip on the tires. If you're too aggressive on initial brake hit, initial brake release, I mean, every little thing is precise. So when I got back in the Corvette this year at Sebring, it took me a few laps to really understand and respect it again, because I thought, okay, I'm going to get back into this car. It's a little slower here and there, but I can throw it around and get the lap time out of it. And as soon as you start sliding it around, it's a handful, and you got to get into a rhythm to get the lap time.
So watch me burn a bridge here. So if Continental, as they develop their tire, gives you a more precise slip angle, DP becomes more similar to your Corvette GTE experience?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question. I'm not sure exactly. I'm sure there's stuff mechanically with the car that makes it do it this way. The DP is a much stiffer car. The GT car is rolling around a bit more because it's a softer platform. So with a softer platform, you do need to be a little bit more easy on your inputs, and because it's going to react much quicker. If you lift, say, like the dogleg at Daytona, which is just a slight lift, if you aggressively come off the throttle, you're going to shift all the weight on the front of the car quickly, and then you're going to have an imbalanced car. So I think with the DP, since it's so stiff, you get a much more direct feel of what the car is doing.
So we're going to start drawing some conclusions about this whole DP controversy, but you set the stage. I got to ask you. So here you are, Corvette racing the black car with Dad in DP, Corvette racing the yellow car in GTE. The hell are you going to do next year?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you, and I wish I got to make the decision.
Do you know?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I wish they would make a decision and let me know.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were talking a little bit about Le Mans, just kind of all the drivers together. Well, I guess the 4 drivers who are there now, they don't have an issue, but Richard Westbrook and I are coming in for Sebring, Le Mans, Petit Le Mans. We've got to figure it out, but the only races, I guess, that'll clash next year would be Daytona, Sebring, and Petit, because Le Mans shouldn't clash. So I guess my perfect world would be a full season of Daytona Prototypes, and they keep me on for Le Mans. So I'll let them know that that's what I want.
That sounds good. Well, we'll send the video to Fehan and the guys.
Okay,
whatever.
Perfect.
So let's get back to Daytona Prototype, because I hate to say it, but in my opinion, how people accept the Daytona Prototype decisions have a big effect on how they accept the United Sports Car Racing Series. And I believe the acceptance of USCR has domino effects to how people perceive US racing, how it'll affect NASCAR, what IndyCar is going to do and not do and succeed, and even trickle down to how people look at American racing, GRC, World Rally if it comes, and et cetera, et cetera. And if USC fails to not attract fans, to not have an international buzz, not good for business sponsors, it'll have an impact. But it also has an impact on teams and drivers. I mean, everyone thinks, put it together, double the number. But now you're a guy that's in both camps. Tell the fans a little bit about the buzz about what's really going on with that scenario.
Yeah, well, it kind of stinks for me and a lot of drivers, but
hey, if you talk technical terms like stinks, you're going to lose me, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean, from a driver's perspective, like if you just take me for an example, I was in the perfect world this year. I get to be with my dad in the prototype class all year, going for a championship, and then I get to be with one of the greatest teams in sports cars, Corvette Racing, for the 3 biggest races in the world. So I was loving that, and next year it's not possible. And if you look at plenty of other drivers, guys who are doing both series, kind of like Patrick Long, who's doing full seasons in both, I mean, he's not going to be able to do that next year. There goes his paycheck really cut in half because he can only do half the races that he was doing this year. So from a driver's perspective, it takes a lot of opportunities away. And then from a team's perspective, it's going to raise the budget, I think, quite a bit because you're going to have extra races, extra endurance races. So it definitely makes it interesting.
I fear that DP is saddled with the fact that it came from NASCAR, and certain sports car purists have a problem with that. You and I talked about the aero part of it, and you mentioned old technology, tube frame versus carbon. In your opinion, what do you think you'd like to see DP become? Because the best I can understand, 2014 are in fact transition years. We're on generation, 4 of the DP. Something new is coming in 16. I mean, is it what I just described, or is there something else in your head that says either get over it or factor in these type of things?
No, I wouldn't say get over it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people that will not support the Daytona Prototype, and then there's a lot of people that won't support the LMP2s, and that's just the way it's going to be in the future. I think it would be cool to kind of evolve the Daytona Prototype into something that looks more like an Audi or something. I do like close cockpit cars, but I don't want to lose the fact that the Daytona Prototypes can race and race closely, and that for me that's what racing should be. And cars battling, you watch DTM, and they've had to evolve into the DRS system as well to make passing and make racing. And then you look at V8 supercars, which isn't reliant on aero or anything, and they're passing every other corner. So for me, that's what I go to watch racing. And sure, there's going to be fans that are writing on this YouTube video saying that I hate LMP2, but it's not that I hate it. It's just that I want to go watch a race and watch people battle for a win.
Well, I think you've made the point clear that even though there is some competition in P2, you're right. The racing in DP, you can't deny that part of it. Now, if we can get a car that people can accept and understand where we're going. Maybe we've got something good. Thank you for your time. We're going to see each other Road America. You'll find
Okay.
out. You'll find out how short I am and how tall you are. So.
Okay, cool. Thanks
Thanks
for having
again.
me.